Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Development Marketplace 2018, Innovations in Addressing Gender-Based Violence, held in memory of Hannah Graham. If you would please silence your electronic devices and direct your attention to the video screen at the front of the room.
Coming here and hearing the other teams talk about their ideas has been quite humbling.
It's given us an opportunity to learn a whole range of different programs that are really at the cutting edge of addressing gender-based violence.
We are very happy to be part of this big family.
Talk about intersectoral action as a mainstream way of addressing gender-based violence.
It just makes me so happy to know that I'm having such a direct contribution.
I hope that it will change the way that I do things forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage World Bank Group President Jim Young Kim.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here to honor the memory of Hannah Graham and celebrate this year's winners of our Development Marketplace Awards for innovations in the prevention and response to gender-based violence. I first of all want to thank the Graham family. And where are the Grahams? Can you please stand up? Thank you. This is now the third year that we have given these awards in honor of Hannah, the daughter of our friend and colleague, John Graham. John's a member of the World Bank Group family, and when the Graham family tragically lost their daughter nearly 4 years ago, they heroically channeled their grief into action to try to prevent gender-based violence all over the world. Now, just one quick aside. I pledged 3 years ago that we would provide $700,000 a year from the President's office budget, and of course we will continue. But you'll see that we're over $1 million this year because other groups have chipped in, and while we have all our regional vice presidents here, I just want to tell them that they're very welcome to chip in as well. Everyone, we can go even higher in the years to come. But this has become a labor of love for us, and this has also become something around which we maintain extremely strong convictions. Gender-based violence is a global pandemic, and when I, as an infectious disease doctor, say pandemic, I mean it. It is a problem that infiltrates every single society in the world, every region, every income level, and it takes many forms, including cyber violence, sexual exploitation and abuse, and physical violence from an intimate partner. Almost 1/3 of women around the world who've been in a relationship have experienced violence by their intimate partner. WHO, the World Health Organization, estimates that the prevalence of intimate partner violence is as high as 43% in some countries, and that as many as 38% of all murders of women are committed by intimate partners. In 45 countries, there are no laws on domestic violence. 59 countries have no laws on sexual harassment in the workplace. The fact that millions of women around the world suffer this kind of violence and billions of women are prevented from achieving their aspirations is an outrage. This is a human issue. And on top of that, it's a critical economic issue and a key priority for our work around the world. Too often, gender-based violence prevents women from going to school or being able to work. The development costs are staggering. We estimate that intimate partner violence alone costs developing countries between 1.2% to 3.7% of GDP. close to the average amount that governments in developing countries spend on primary education. The bottom line is that we have no chance to end extreme poverty and boost shared prosperity without preventing gender-based violence throughout the world. And gender-based violence is preventable. The World Bank Group has a number of roles to play in that effort, as a financer, as a development practitioner, a leader in research, and a convener. These awards touch on all those roles, but as in previous years, the award winners are focusing their research in the one area where we have the least amount of knowledge and data: prevention. These award winners are harnessing technology and developing new systems to address many of the root causes of gender-based violence and finding new ways to prevent it. We'll hear more about all the award winners, but here are a few highlights. 2 teams are harnessing the power of digital technologies. In Armenia, the team is developing a mobile app that connects survivors with resources. In Honduras, the team is creating an online resource platform to support survivors. In Cambodia, the team is collaborating with faith leaders to tackle gender-based violence. They're working with Buddhist monks to counsel both survivors and perpetrators to reduce violence in parts of the country where religious leaders have significant moral authority. The team in South Africa is developing and studying the effects of a program called the Walking School Bus, where adults supervise students on their walk to school to prevent violence among youth, which often occurs on the bus to school. In Rwanda, the team is exploring the long-term impacts of individual agency-centered training, how personal economic empowerment can prevent gender-based violence among refugees. I want to congratulate all of the award winners here today. Thank you for your dedication to tackling this critical challenge. Thank you for focusing your expertise, your creativity, and your efforts to preventing gender-based violence all over the world. When you came into the building today, you passed by the entrance that captures the mission of the World Bank Group. Our dream is a world free of poverty. When I took over in 2012, we decided that we were going to set a deadline to end extreme poverty by 2030 and to boost the prosperity of the poorest 40% all over the world. These goals and that dream are not possible if women aren't free from violence and fear. They're not possible if women don't have equal agency, the ability to make key decisions in their life, such as marriage or having children. They're not possible if women don't have equality of opportunity. Because of the effort and expertise of these award winners, the courage and generosity of the Graham family, because of the dedication of everyone in this room, we can find new ways to prevent gender-based violence and move closer to a world where every woman in every country has a chance to reach her highest aspirations. Now, it's my great privilege to announce the Chief Executive Officer of the International Finance Corporation, Philippe Leouereau. Thank you very much.
It's always tough to follow suits after Jim. But thank you, Jim. I mean, you stole most of my speech, so I'm going to try to quickly readjust. I think that you hit it right on the head. And this is, as you say, something that is pervasive. I mean, we see it on Hollywood recently, but it goes everywhere. From fragile states to rich communities, this is a problem that has no borders. And as you said it also, it's a moral imperative to stop it. But in addition to moral, the way we look at it at IFC, it's also in terms of cost. You said it too. The cost of gender-based violence for individual, for business, for communities, for whole countries is massive. We have a few statistics here. I mean, and that's not us, that's the United Nations, who estimated in 2016 that the global cost of violence against women is $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion, which is more or less equivalent to the size of the entire Canadian economy. It's always good to kind of put things in perspective. So Now let me turn also what we can do in the private sector, because this is where a lot of the jobs are. So globally, a typical Fortune 500 company loses $6.7 million per year because of absenteeism, low productivity, and staff turnover related to domestic and sexual violence. In this context, our clients in IFC and partners are engaging with us more than ever before to address this topic together. Several clients have come to us asking for advice on how to handle certain situations. As they know well, no company is immune. In particular, we're working with companies in countries where the problem is particularly acute. In Myanmar, for example, this is one of the 21 economies out of the 189 that are surveyed that registered the lowest possible score, 0, on protecting women from violence. So IFC is researching the impact of sexual harassment in the workplace, and we are now helping companies that want to deal with this problem. With them, we are implementing effective mechanisms for preventing and addressing sexual harassment in Myanmar. In Papua New Guinea, 94% of employers say that their staff experience gender-based violence. In response to this shocking figure, IFC and with partners are establishing the world's first public-private partnership service center in Papua New Guinea to support women employees and community members facing violence. In the Solomon Islands, IFC is supporting 12 of the country's largest companies, together with the Chamber of Commerce, to address domestic and family violence at the workplace through workshop series and training. There is a demand out there. I can continue the example. I'll stop on those. So we look forward to partner with the winners of the development marketplace in learning from your work and building on the learning with our private sector partners. Let me congratulate you for your fantastic and much needed work. And let me close with a commitment from IFC. For the next development marketplace, we will also be awarding innovative private sector interventions to address gender-based violence. We will launch a call for submission from the private sector in a few months. Then we will provide resources to companies that have this designated solution, design solution, preventing and addressing gender-based violence. The money is already in the bank, so. But we want to crowd in. We pitched in. Now again. The bottom line is that the benefits of addressing gender-based violence at work are numerous. When employees flourish, companies and society flourish as well. It's that simple. So now I have the pleasure to introduce a video showing the impact made by 2 past winners of this award. It's good to follow through. So with that, I want to thank you very much and see you next year with the money. Thank you.
În general, pentru mine, violența domestică și cea bazată pe gen este ceva anormal. Deci, la acest curs am învățat că violența poate fi oprită, poate fi stopată.
Și astăzi putem vorbi de peste 2500 de elevi care au trecut sau studiază anul acesta disciplina relații armonioase în cuplu.
La cursul de relații armonioase în familie am învățat cum este să-ți construiești o relație bazată pe încredere, pe curaj, pe dragoste, pe înțelegere între 2 persoane.
La prima lecție, atunci când vin elevii la curs, când aud de obiectul relații armonioase în familie, li se pare ceva nu serios, însă la predarea a doua, a treia temă li se pare foarte captivant și încep să vin cu regularitate.
Am instruit 48 de profesori care au predat și predau această disciplină în circa 40 de licee din Republica Moldova.
Am învățat ce înseamnă comunicarea asertivă și în privința faptului cum se rezolvă conflictele într-o familie, cum ar trebui să fie o familie armonioasă. Acest curs m-a ajutat să scot ochelarii roz pe care îi aveam. Nu pot garanta, dar pot zice cu încredere că voi încerca să-mi creez o familie bazată pe încredere, pe înțelegere și pe dragoste.
Hello, everyone. Fantastic stuff, isn't it? Hello, I'm Maggie Lake. I'm a business anchor with CNN International. I'll be your moderator tonight for Development Marketplace 2018. So much of what we just got a peek at is so inspiring. I'm sure you feel the same way. I just want to draw your attention to the screen. If you want to comment on social media about anything, any part of the discussion tonight, you can find the hashtags that you could use on the screen behind me. So let's get to the awards. It is my pleasure to welcome the head of 5 of the 6 World Bank Group regions and 2 county directors to present the awards to the deserving winners tonight. As I announce the team representatives to the stage, you'll see on the screen behind me actual images from these winning programs, so you get a sense of what is happening. So first, Vice President for East Asia and the Pacific, Victoria Kwakwa, presenting awards to the region's 2 winning teams. For Cambodia, Maurice Icebrook and Terry Chan of Monash University, the Reproductive and Child Health Alliance and Culture for Change, to explore how monks and female devotees can contribute to the prevention of gender-based violence. Cannot forget the photo op. Next, for Papua New Guinea, Lauren Siegman and Jackie Joseph of Equal Playing Fields, whose winning research will study the RMIT Australia, how to develop groups of boys and girls in schools to be leaders for change. Thank you, Victoria. Now introducing Vice President of Europe and Central Asia, Cyril Muller, to present the award to our next winner. For Armenia, Bagrat Yengi Baran and Julia Tumasen from the Enterprise Incubator Foundation, who have won an award for their proposal, Geeks Against Gender-Based Violence, which will leverage ICT solutions. Thank you, Cyril. Next, introducing Vice President for Latin America and the Caribbean, Jorge Familiar Calderon, presenting award to the region's 3 winning teams. I apologize for some of the names. If I'm not exact, you'll forgive me. For Colombia, Arturo Harcar of the Juan Fe Foundation. His winning proposal will evaluate the 360 Degrees program for adolescent mothers in its preventative effects on gender-based violence in Colombia. For Honduras, Sharon Bupendra from YTH and Gina Rosales from Asociación Gojoven Honduras, Gojoven International, who want to reduce teen dating violence through an innovative mobile phone intervention to reach young people. For Peru, Daniel Hurtado and Sergio DeMarco of Innovations for Poverty Action, who will undertake an impact evaluation of Leaders in Action, a program in which local leaders are empowered to prevent and reduce gender-based violence in their communities in Peru. Thank you, Jorge. Now introducing Director of Strategy and Operations for Middle East and North Africa, Samia Amsadek, representing the region's Vice President to present the award for Jordan. For Jordan, Fazwa Bilbaisi, on behalf of the World Bank's Executive Director for Jordan, will accept the award for the Tri Center for Training and Education. The center will undertake research on intimate partner violence among new married couples. Thank you, Sama and Fawaz. Now, Acting Vice President for the South Asia region, Ethel Senhauser, will represent the next award. For Nepal, Nirmal Rajal of Equal Access International to measure impacts of the Change Starts at Home project. Thank you, Ethel. And now introducing Country Director for Kenya and Rwanda, Diarute Gaya, who will present the next two awards. For Kenya, Peg Bevan and Joyce Majiwa from Send a Cow. They were selected for their planned research study with Global Women's Institute to examine the effectiveness of Send a Cow's economic interventions on reducing rates of interpersonal violence. And for Rwanda, Anita Shankar and Naire Kalra from Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health, and Luis Garcia Lamonde, representing Plan International Spain. They and the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves will assess the long-term impacts of empowerment training on gender-based violence and household energy use in humanitarian settings. Thank you. And now, introducing Paul Numba, Country Director from South Africa, to present the final award. For South Africa, Zainab Isak for the Human Sciences Research Council, and Nendomiso Nigide from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, who will evaluate a walking school bus as a school-related gender-based violence intervention. Thank you, Paul. Our stage is now full with representatives of each of this year's awards, and in a moment we'll kickstart our discussion. First, let's hear again from a previous winner and see where they are now.
This study originated out of concern that there were increased rates of child marriage for young Syrian girls who'd been displaced as a result of the conflict, and also that girls were being married at younger and younger ages.
Early marriage is a violation of human rights, and in times of conflicts, this phenomenon increases, so you see the numbers rising.
The study used a fairly innovative research methodology and approach called SenseMaker that collects stories told and recorded by participants, and then uniquely the participants actually interpret their own stories using an app on a tablet.
We recruited around 12 data collectors, interviewers. 6 of them were females in order to interview females.
We collected 1,422 self-interpreted stories from Syrian girls, both married and unmarried, as well as Syrian mothers and fathers, and married and unmarried men in the community.
What is important about these results is that 2 newly emerging root causes became evident. So it's no longer just the cultural practice, but what was also brought up were the economic factors and the protection factors. I mean, I think there are multiple implications. Okay, in terms of practice, I think it helps us to design our programming accordingly. We always want to intervene, but we want to make sure that what we do is really making an impact. And I think understanding the different root causes can help us tailor programs and projects that are really more impactful, not on the short term, but also on the long term.
It's wonderful to see the fruits of what has transpired before. It's so important, I think, when you're talking about these challenges, to focus on the solutions, the innovations, the difference people can make with the support that they're given. So let's begin. Congratulations to all of you, first of all. Thank you so much. We're going to start with Daniel from Peru. And Daniel, your project looks at norms, shifting gender norms. It sounds like such an impossible task. Can you talk a little bit about how that's possible and what you've seen happening on the ground?
Yes, of course. Well, in partnership with the Peruvian Ministry of Women, we will evaluate a state-run intervention that builds on the promising and growing strand of the literature that suggests that interventions that tackles multiple factors associated with gender-based violence, especially gender norms, may be effective. Shifting gender norms is truly a challenge. However, the intervention relies on community-based leaders. So these leaders are recognized by local authorities and the people of these communities as key actors in several of the processes that are already in place in these communities. So therefore, the government have designed an intervention, a program around these leaders. They will be trained, they will be empowered around gender-based violence. So we expect this to leverage their social capital and take advantage of the leaders' network to engage the whole community against gender-based violence and reducing their acceptability and ultimately to reduce the incidence of gender-based violence.
And Peg, I think that one of the important things when you're identifying this is not only to address women, but men and women. How does your program do that, and why is it important to engage both genders?
Okay, that's two questions. We at Sendikau developed a simple tool called the Transformative Household Methodology that uses local materials and facilitates a dialogue between men, women, girls and boys in a household or community setting for them to identify themselves, who is doing what, who is controlling what, and who's making the decisions. And really they're uncovering the inequalities for themselves, and then they come up with the solutions. And we've even seen boys cry doing this because they realize how overburdened their mothers are. So we know that this tool brings very significant gender change in our programs. What we don't know is the impact it's having on gender-based violence, and this is what we're working with the Global Women's Institute here in DC to find out. It's really important to involve men and boys, because without that, it's very difficult to have real change. You saw in the video, you can turn relationships into respectful, trustful, loving relationships if you include men and boys and women and girls. But also the impact is longer lasting because you have generational change. So you have girls and boys who grow up with a loving relationship and good role models, and then can also impact the community. So we have men who've been through our programs who've seen the positives of gender change and equality for themselves and obviously for their wives and families, and they become mentors to others in the community. So the program also spreads wider because you've involved men and boys.
Were you surprised to find that they didn't realize the burdens that were being carried in their own households?
Yeah, very surprised, but they don't really think about it. It's just accepted, particularly in Kenya, Western Kenya, where we're going to be implementing the project. It's just accepted that women get up at the crack of dawn and work all day and all evening till very late. And until you lay it out, it's a simple tool that creates a grid on the ground that they can visualize, and they create it for themselves until they see it in black and white, if you like, on the ground. they haven't really thought about it.
Yeah, which is extraordinary. And the price on what you do in the house, the economic value of that is, I think, no matter what country you're talking about, something that's lost on many of us. Sharan, one common theme we're hearing throughout all of this is the importance of young people, of tapping into people when they're young, having conversations when it comes to this, including dating violence in adolescence. It's a difficult topic, but it's so important to talk about.
Hi, Maggie, I'm here, sorry. The seats
Everything's shifted around. I'm just shouting out, and you'll let me know where you are. Seating changes, just like a wedding.
Thank you for that question, Maggie. I could talk for hours on this particular topic, but I'll try and do that in less than a minute. So yes, I think there's a lot of evidence that indicates that working with young people and adolescents, it's a unique opportunity to really address intimate partner violence and gender-based violence. Because adolescence, it's a very critical stage of development where young people are learning about gendered behaviors and what's a healthy relationship and what's not. And if in their environment, in their communities or in their families, they are frequently exposed to violence, the ability to distinguish what's an act of violence and what's actually normal, healthy behavior becomes much diminished. And in this situation, in order to break the cycle of intergenerational effects of intimate partner violence, it's really quite critical to engage with young people on primary prevention. But this engagement can't be superficial. It has to be deep and it has to be meaningful because young people aren't problems that adults have to solve for. They're assets. And that's the approach that Zona Segura and our partners, YTH and Govan Honduras and International are using. We are working with young people in environments and places where they live, learn, and play to really engage them and ignite creativity and innovation so that we can disrupt the status quo and challenge the norms and build solutions that are authentic and powerful and probably hence more likely to succeed.
I'm glad you said authentic, because the one thing with kids, I have a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old, is they sniff it out when they're being lectured to or it's not coming from an authentic place. So it is really important to build that into the model. Very young. Okay, Jackie. Where's Jackie? So I'm going to have you pick right up because it sounds like it's a very similar place. We just heard Sharan talk about the need to reach them where they are. Schools being a place, not often. They should be a safe place. They should be a refuge. They're not always. Why is it important to deliver the message there? And what are you doing with your program?
In a country like Papua New Guinea, where there's more than 800 languages and very diverse cultures, it can be an unsafe place for students or for children. What we find about schools is that schools have populations of boys and girls, and these are boys and girls who are open to thinking about gender in different ways. And we believe that this rethinking is crucial to a program that can be targeted towards violence prevention. And some of the results we're getting from our program is that boys and girls for the first time are playing together. And that in itself is a breakthrough in terms of a barrier that boys and girls are even scared to even touch the boys. So we believe that school provides that ideal environment to boys and girls to rethink again what gender is in society.
When you're doing that in the schools, are the parents receptive? Are they suspicious? Do you have to overcome that?
I think in terms of a behavior change or in terms of a change that needs to happen, it needs to be a whole of community approach where from the individual level it goes on to the relationship, community and society level. So while we target schools, I think that we still need to do more, that a program that still targets the outside community, and that includes teachers, that includes parents, that includes taxi drivers, or anybody that makes part of the community or part of the society needs to be part of that change.
Schools are very much the center of many communities, though, so a powerful place to start with that message. Nirmal? Yes. You have been looking at changing social norms. We just talked about that. I think it's so daunting when people hear that, but I think we see change is kind of condensed and has happened more rapidly now, or there's the potential for that. How do you scale that, though? How do you take a community experience, a village experience, a school experience, and bring that up to scale?
Thanks, Maggie, for the question.
That's a hard question, by the way.
It's a tough one, yeah. I think evidence is key, evidence of what works, and using that evidence to design your new program or scale up your program, because resources are scarce, and we need to make the best use of those resources. As for this project that we are embarking on, it aims to look at patterns of diffusion of social norms change, how they permeate from a small set of interventions into the larger community, and the likelihood of rejection or propensity to adopt such changes. So there are early change adopters of change, some that are relatively slow to adopt such change, and some that do not adopt at all. So what are the characteristics of those households that will inform this pattern of diffusion that can be taken, which is important when we scale up a project. And apart from that, I think the project will also inform scholarship on this issue, which is and data and information is very scarce, and also it will help practitioners design projects that can be scaled up further.
When you do this, is it important to talk about the benefits? There are resources involved, but there are benefits and economic benefits. We heard the president say, and I jotted it down because it's a staggering number, 1.2 to 3.7% of GDP. Mm-hmm. When you're trying to pull in the stakeholders, is it important to present that part, that there is an economic benefit to this as well as a societal and ethical benefit?
I think so, absolutely, yes. And that is where, again, evidence is important. We could talk about the benefits without having the evidence, but if we have evidence, then that can be more powerful as a message to take across.
Especially when you're having to commit resources. Anita. You are looking at a program, and this really struck me, that Cooking Energy and Personal Empowerment is addressing both non-partner and intimate partner violence in refugee settings. I mean, I don't know that people always connect those issues with the issue of gender violence. Explain that to us.
So, as you can imagine, life in a refugee camp is very, very difficult, and unfortunately, women bear the brunt of that burden. Oftentimes, there's not enough fuel to cook the food. And so what individuals do, mostly women, they forage outside the camp, sometimes up to 5 hours to collect firewood, just so that they can cook the meal for the family. This really puts them at great risk for harassment, assault, and sexual violence. And we also know that within these camps, intimate partner violence is also very high. This food insecurity, economic insecurity leads to a lot of stresses in the household. So we have this really exciting opportunity actually to take two transformative public health interventions. We've got a behavioral intervention that's used to kind of shift mindsets, and a really disruptive technological intervention, which is clean cook stoves and fuels. And so the clean cook stove and fuels that's in our program reduces reliance on firewood by 80%. So this, whatever allowance of firewood that they may get, they no longer need to leave the camp to get more firewood. But we also know that technology alone isn't enough. You need to have the behavior change. And so that's why we're very excited to have, we have a very unique behavioral intervention that's for both the women and their male partners. And that's really focused on having them understand how their thoughts and their beliefs and their emotions impact their behaviors. So a lot of this is to not only address kind of the external factors related to gender-based violence, but also the internal factors as well. So the behavior change goes to improve interpersonal relationships, but also increased adoption of the technology. Yeah. So that's how it's linked. And I don't think anyone else has been able to look at this problem in this way. So we're very excited to be able to do this. This is a collaboration between Plan International Spain and the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves and Johns Hopkins University. So it's a nice mixture of people coming in from various different fields to do it.
A nice mixture of people, and it underscores how so many of these issues are intertwined when we're talking about, if you resolve one part or if you can pull in the solutions from another part, you can check the box. And so many of it centers around the safety and the economic empowerment of women. I'm shocked by that over and over again. Let's talk a little bit more about technology. Bagrat, I've got to get someone on this side eventually. You're all so much better looking than your pictures, by the way. Your project is about utilizing technology, phone apps. This, again, speaks to me as a mother of a 10 and 11-year-old. That is where their life revolves around. How is that changing the conversation? How are you using that?
First of all, thank you for the award. It's a great honor for our team to be part in this great endeavor. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data analytics. There are several technologies and there are many great startups who are developing solutions in these areas. With their revolutionary solutions, they're changing education, they're changing people-to-people interaction. Can we reduce gender-based violence through these technologies? We think yes. There are two major issues we think we should concentrate on, and that application, I think it will be useful. First, we should use technology to transform victims into contributors. We should change norms, we should change perception. We should start change from grassroots, and the technology will give us this unique opportunity. And there's a second part. We have a problem with the data, we have a problem with reliability of this data. On the other hand, there are so many great people and doing so many great projects, we don't have any information about each other. We're not sharing best practices. I think this is one of the important things that application technology will start. And another important part, we'll try to bring together tech community and community involved in gender-based violence to come together with more and more innovative and important solutions.
And data, it provides the basis for the spending that's needed for the projects to get underwritten. A lot of times the data is very important in that. We're going to go from the sort of promises of AI right back to old school, and that is the walking school bus approach. When I first saw that, I was not aware of this. We heard the president mention a little bit about what it is, adults escorting children. Can you talk more about that and how that's changing the situation on the ground, quite literally from the sounds of it?
Well, we haven't started. It's a proposed project, and this is the funding that will help us do this work. But the idea behind it is that in KwaZulu-Natal, the province in which this work will be done, hundreds and thousands of children walk to school every day, 2 hours and longer. That journey is treacherous. There's lots of social harms. Children are vulnerable to rape, to murder, muggings and bullyings, and I think that's not a problem just for KwaZulu-Natal, but the world over. So the walking school bus idea is that if we have adult supervision of children walking to school, that this might have some protective effect for children.
It doesn't all have to be AI. Sometimes the old approach works as well, and it's important to consider it all, right? Arturo, you're working with the government of Colombia. How are you helping them improve their approach to policy? What do governments need to do it better, to focus on this more?
So that's a great question. Like, the objective of the initiative is precisely to inform the government, to inform policymakers. Our allies, the university, well, I'm at the University of Los Andes, the Juanfe Foundation, and the Inter-American Development Bank. We want to do that. We want to provide evidence in order to better understand gender-based violence among teenage mothers living in extreme poverty. And that evidence is important because we want to show policymakers, the government, how important that problem is, how prevalent is that pandemic. But also we want to understand better which are the protective factors, because we want to develop relevant innovations, relevant solutions. If we don't understand the phenomenon, we're not going to give proper solution and to advance to end gender-based violence.
And we're talking about, in the last two examples, extreme poverty, communities that have very little resources, but this is a problem that touches every part of society, in every country, in every world, and has an economic cost as well as a societal cost. I think it's important to point that out. So when we're trying to get governments on board, it isn't just in certain areas. Maurice, let's talk about what's happening in Cambodia. And this is another instance that I was really struck and really surprised by this. And your project is talking about building a culturally appropriate intervention by partnering with Buddhist monks and female devotees in Cambodia. What are some of the challenges and benefits of engaging people through the local religion?
We could turn that around and say, what are the challenges in not engaging them through the local religion? And we would say that starting at that point, we have a culturally incompatible system by which policy and strategies to prevent violence, gender-based violence, don't work. They don't work because despite huge amounts of money and effort being put in, the uptake of the messages by those policies doesn't make sense to the ordinary woman or man. And so we feel from our preliminary work that we should turn this around and look at what are the perceptions of violence and the bedrock through which violence happens in the community, and that the people who are there, the solution is staring us in the face, because the monks and the female devotees are the gatekeepers by which the people distill and by which the people go for help and solve the problems of GBV when they occur. And indeed, through their ritual behaviour and the teachings of the monks, they provide a framework by which people will not commit violence as much. So that's the starting point. Now, the challenges there are how to change the system where there's such a strongly embedded vertical policy that the problem is in the community and that the culture has to change so that there is gender equality and human rights. Of course, the gender equality and human rights is the axiom, but to get there we need to use the right road, and we believe the right road is working with these gatekeepers who are actually the moral guardians and are there all the time. The benefits are obvious. The benefits are that there is the opportunity to bring about a change in the national action plans, in the national policies and strategies, so that the cultural responsiveness is embedded in them rather than tacked on. Another benefit would be that the community is in fact remoralized, that they are seen to have the tools they need rather than and indeed this way overcome decades of being denigrated and put down after their civil wars and so on. The third benefit is the scalability, because this is an approach which we believe could be applicable to a number of different societies, and it could therefore be taken on board as a model for cultural responsiveness globally. And the fourth and the final benefit I would mention is economic, that this is surely a pathway to a more effective way to reduce poverty and to reduce the disability-adjusted life years suffered by the millions of people who are affected.
What's so striking to me about, and this is why I think this marketplace is so important, is there are the diversity of solutions in all of these different, we've heard religious, we've heard school-related, we've heard AI and technology, we've heard technology with cooking and refugee camps. It's extraordinary, the multifaceted, you're all approaching it from a different perspective. And that to me is so inspiring and amazing. I think we've got a question or two from the audience. I don't, not from the audience, rather the online audience. I don't actually have them. Oh, here they are. And there's a hand from behind. Fantastic. So, and I'm going to let whoever feels best positioned to sort of jump in with this. And the first one is, what are innovative ways that small local NGOs can address gender-based violence, even with small funds? Anybody who's working on technology perhaps want to take that? Because I'm guessing that might be an option.
I think, first of all, the small local NGOs can contribute with the content. This is very important also, but we need to provide them an environment that is content and experience will be not a local but global. We should create global solutions on local initiatives and on local problems.
Yeah.
And because the technology will giving us this opportunity, and should encourage with the small resources, with the small opportunities, but to contribute to the global platforms and global environment that, first of all, will exchange to share information, there are many solutions they can get from outside, even without spending money to do analysis, to do a data analysis, to do analytical work. There are many examples that are already taking part in a different part of the world. So this is an opportunity, I think, first of all, for the small budget, small local NGOs to contribute to the global environment and to try to be part of the global work, but to continue to do their local work.
And this is where data can make this more available. I mean, there may be platforms and opportunities available to local, but if it's not connected and dispersed in one place, you don't know where to get it and access it. This is a great question, and I would encourage a couple of you, because we're almost out of time, to jump in. What's the biggest limiting factor in improving gender-based violence? Is it money? Is it time? Is it government? In other words, if your organization can have an unlimited amount of one item, this is a dreamer here, to have a major reduction in gender-based violence, what would it be? I like people who think big, but I think they're trying to get to where's the challenge, where's the rub?
For us, I would say it's staff time, so that equates to money eventually.
Yeah.
But for us, it's about being in the communities, giving it time, building those relationships of trust that they then trust you, so they can then start to open up, start to have these facilitated dialogues, start to consider their own situation and come up with their own solutions. And for us, that takes time, that takes skilled and experienced staff who are trained, so staff time.
I think that's very important, because this can be a very personal and intimate, we say intimate partner violence, but there needs to be a level of trust there in order to move the needle on that. So that is very interesting that you say that, because I think people would assume it's money, first off.
One of the areas that I would really like to see is a greater awareness of where gender inequalities exist throughout one's life and in our environments, and to engage men and boys fundamentally through this process as early as possible, to have these kinds of conversations and understand that these are complex intersectorial situations. There is not one solution, and to be partnering up with other individuals, either in technology or business or other different ways to be able to tackle it. But at the core, it's a fundamental belief that men and women are somehow different and therefore can be treated, differently. And so to start erasing that socially in society.
We're out of time for this part. The conversation is going to continue at the reception, and I think you made such an important point about it being a problem that needs to be solved by both genders. We hear about that with everything that's happened with Me Too and Time's Up, that if we are going to move forward, men need to be part of the solution, and that exists for this conversation as well. It's critical, which is why addressing the young people, as so many of you are doing with your projects, is so important. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure for me to hear all of your stories and see all the good work being done. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank all of you. The reception and the conversation, you can pepper them all with questions outside. Thank you. Thank you. You guys were wonderful. That was a lot to get through quickly. I was not optimistic, but you did a great job. I'm sorry they changed a lot from the last bit I got, so I was like suddenly sat down and thought, I have no idea where they're all sitting.
No, I'm so... I was told I need to make closing remarks. They're all going. I'm so...
Excuse me, everyone. I was so excited by the conversation, I forgot the most important person, or one of the important people you need to hear from here, who thankfully made her way up, who's going to close us out today. I'm so sorry.
I don't want to stand between you and the reception. I just want to do a few things in closing. My name is Karen Groen. I'm the Senior Director for Gender here at the World Bank Group, and we've been doing this now for 3 years, as you heard. This is my favorite event of the year, I have to tell you, because the first year I said it was so inspiring. The second year I said, oh my gosh, this is so inspiring. And this year I'm saying, oh my gosh, it's so inspiring. I think it's really true. In this era of Me Too, Time's Up, the attention on sexual abuse, exploitation, and sexual harassment. I have to say that no institution is perfect. The World Bank is not perfect, but neither is any other institution. But one thing I can say is that we've been focused on these issues now for a while. We've rolled up our sleeves. We've taken it very, very seriously. We're doing work on the mitigation of gender-based violence in our infrastructure operations. And perhaps most importantly, we're doing this kind of work through the grants to focus on research and evidence for prevention, because this is where we need to start. There's everything that you can do on the mitigation and the response side, but unless you really focus on the prevention side, you won't get traction. And for me, I think what's most inspiring every year that I hear from these award winners are a few things. The first is use of technology. Technology is really critical in this conversation as more and more people use it. We have to use it well. And we have had award winners that have looked at cyberbullying, the disadvantages of technology, but we also have the use of technology in really important ways for mapping, for connection, for changing social norms, for new apps. It's really critical. I think the other thing that we look for when we give the award winners, which is exemplified here, is holistic solutions. As you all know, and as have been said at this panel, there's no one size that fits all, and there's no one thing that works. And you have to start with people, and that's what all of our grantees are doing. It's people. It's focused on attitudes, norms, and beliefs, and it often starts at the community level or institutions at a community level working up. You cannot have a top-down imposition solution. You can have top-down in the sense of the right policy framework and the right institutional policies, but you have to fundamentally start with people. And what's so inspiring about this group of people is that they're not only piloting and experimenting, they're collecting evidence. Evidence on what works, but also evidence on what doesn't work, because we need to know also what doesn't work in order to figure out where we put our resources properly. And most importantly then, that evidence needs to get to the right people. And that's why I'm so glad that it's the World Bank that are doing this, because we have dialogues with governments, we have dialogues with finance ministers who are not easily convinced that this is something that they need to put their resources toward. But we also have partnerships and dialogues with others, whether it's civil society organizations or the private sector, as you heard from Philippe this morning. And actually the private sector is a really important force of change. And the fact that we can spread across so many sectors to be holistic is really critical. So this is the thing that's also most important about this is that it's about learning. And the grantees learn from each other. We plan a learning week for each of them. We hope to plan a learning week where you actually come together with winners from the past. And within each of the countries where the grantees, where the projects are going to be taking place, we plan learning with our country offices and with others at the country level. So I'd like to invite you now to learn with them. We have set up in the next room a poster session, all of our, like a marketplace, development marketplace. All of the grantees and award winners will be there. You can meet them, you can talk to them about their projects, and we can increase the networks for learning. So with that, I want to particularly also thank my team. I want to recognize Diana Arango, who's worked on this for many years with us. And we've had an amazing communications staff led by Chris Walsh and David Young and many others who have worked with them, whose names are too numerous to say, but I want to give my heartfelt thanks to everybody. And with this, I want you to join me in once again giving a huge round of applause to these award winners. Thank you so much. And let's go learn, and we'll have some eating and drinking in the process.